Then kira boleh start lah. Ni.
Boleh. Boleh, kita boleh start.
Assalamualaikum and greetings. My name Nur Hidayat Salman and I will be your MC today. Welcome everyone to the webinar of Sustainable Development Goal SDG6, Rising Up to Ensure Clean Water and Sanitation for All. Brought to you by the Economic Planning Unit, Prime Minister Department and Malaysian Water Association. You are joining us live through Zoom. Before we start, I would like to do some technical testing. If you can hear and see me clearly, please let me know. You can also type in the chat box mentioning from where you are watching this webinar, probably from the office or maybe from home. I want to see from your chat box now. You can share me where you are watching us right now. A little housekeeping announcement. All participants' microphone will be turned off throughout our webinar, but feel free to ask questions or give your views to our panelists through chat box in Zoom or inside comment section. Please state your name and your organization before every questions or views. Thank you for your cooperation. And ladies and gentlemen, without any further ado, let's start our webinar now. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning. Salam sejahtera keluarga Malaysia. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Economic Planning Unit, Prime Minister Department and Malaysian Water Association, I would like to welcome everyone to our webinar of Sustainable Development Goal SDG6, Rising Up to Ensure Clean Water and Sanitation for All. Ladies and gentlemen, with us today, Yang Berusaha Engineer Dr. Mahmud Asari bin Daud, President of Malaysian Water Association. I would like to welcome our moderator, Yang Berusaha Associate Professor Dr. Nur Hayati binti Abdullah, Council Member of Malaysian Water Association, as well as our panelists, Yang Berusaha Engineer Hajah Bibi Zarina binti Cik Omar, Deputy Director General Specialist Sector, Department of Irrigation and Drainage, Minister of Environment and Water, yang berbahagia Datuk Engineer Abdul Kadir bin Muhammad Din, Immediate Past President of Malaysia Water Association, yang berbahagia Datuk Engineer Lim Chow Hook, Network Manager, Malaysian Capacity Development Network for Sustainable Water Management, MyCDNet, and Yang Berusaha Dr. Su Tai Teh, CEO of Global Peace Foundation Malaysia. Once again, welcome everyone to the webinar today. My name is Nur Hidayat Salman and I will be your MC today. And distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, to start our event, let us hear welcoming remarks that will be delivered by Yang Berbahagia, Datuk Seri Saiful Anwar bin Lebay Hussein, Director General of Economic Planning Unit, Prime Minister Department. Dipersilakan.
Thank you Encik Nur Hidayat bin Salman. Yang berbahagia Datuk, Doktor, Panelists and Moderator, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good morning to all participants, panelists and the moderator. I am delighted to have all of you here and would like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to the Sustainable Development Goal 6 webinar focusing on water and sanitation entitled Rising Up to Ensure Clean Water and Sanitation for All. My warmest appreciation goes to Yang Berusaha Dr. Engineer Technologist Haji Muhammad Asari Daud, President of Malaysia Water Association, MWA, and his team as co-organizer of this webinar. Respected panelists, Puan Engineer Bibi Zarina Cik Omar, Deputy Director, Department of Irrigation and Drainage, Yang berbahagia Datuk Engineer Kadir Muhammad Din, Immediate Past President MWA, Yang berbahagia Datuk Engineer Lim Chow Hock, Network Manager, Malaysian Capacity Development Network for Sustainable Development Management, or MyCDNet, Yang Berusaha Dr. Su Tai Teh, CEO Global Peace Foundation Malaysia, and not least Professor Dr. Nurhayati Abdullah, UPM, who will be facilitating today's discussion. As the focal point for the SDG agenda, APU has organized several webinars in association with other parties. Among the topics discussed in the earlier webinars include TVET education for future demand and supply, empowering women in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic, and embracing circular economy in relation to education, gender equality, and responsible consumption and production. The organizing of these webinars was inspired by our Minister himself as a platform for sharing information, knowledge, and experiences to ensure our actions are on track and aligned to attaining the SDG targets that have been set out. The information gathered will enhance effective policy making and the development of effective action plans. I believe our session today will benefit all relevant stakeholders involved in the water sector, namely the policymakers, regulators, private entities, and industry players. For today's event, Goal 6 of the SDG on water and sanitation has been chosen as the focus. Our topic of discussion is in line with the 12 Malaysia Plan, which highlighted our aspiration in transforming the water sector from an economic enabler to a new dynamic economic sector. While efforts are underway in preparation for the next 20 years, 5 strategic thrusts have been identified in the 12th plan as the impetus. These include empowering people, strengthening governance at all levels, enhancing capability in data-driven decision-making, ensuring sustainable financing, and developing sustainable infrastructure with cost-effective technology. The initial stage of the national agenda to transform the water sector aims to accelerate and strengthen water management towards ensuring the provision of clean and safe water. Today, the panelists will highlight varied issues faced by the users and provide recommendations to strengthen integrated water management. The outcome of the discussion today will add on to the plans and initiatives already developed by relevant ministries and agencies toward meeting the objective of the 12th plan in ensuring inclusivity, prosperity, and sustainability in relation to better water management. In closing, I hope this seminar, jointly organized by EPU and the Malaysian Water Association, will be of benefit to all in the government sector, non-government associations, academicians, and industry players. Let us all rise up and together take the necessary action toward supporting efforts in the provision of clean water and sanitation for the continued well-being and economic growth of our nation. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Yang Berbahagia Datuk Seri Saiful Anwar bin Lebai Hussein for the welcoming remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, next I would like to welcome Yang Berusaha Engineer Dr. Mahmud Asari bin Daud, President of Malaysian Water Association, to deliver his special remarks. Dipersilakan.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera keluarga industri air Malaysia sekalian. Terima kasih pengacara majlis MC pada pagi ini, Encik Muhammad Nur Hidayat Salman. Yang berhormat Datuk Seri Mustafa Muhammad, Menteri di Jabatan Perdana Menteri. Datuk Seri Saiful Anwar Lebai Hassan, Ketua Pengarah Unit Pelancaran Ekonomi, Jabatan Perdana Menteri. Yang berusaha Associate Professor Dr. Nurhayati Abdullah, Moderator dan juga Council Member of the Malaysian Water Association. Yang berusaha Engineer Hajah Bibi Zarina binti Cik Omar, Deputy Director General JPS. Yang berbahagia Datuk Engineer Abdul Kadir Madin, our immediate past president. Yang berbahagia Datuk Engineer Lim Chow Hock, Network Manager Malaysian Capacity Development Network for Sustainable Water Management, MyCDNet. Yang berusaha Dr. Su Tai Teh, CEO of the Global Peace Foundation Malaysia. distinguished guests, participants, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, on behalf of the Malaysian Water Association, I would like to wish you a very warm welcome. Our distinguished guests, speakers, water industry players and stakeholders, participants, ladies and gentlemen, to this morning webinar, which is jointly organized by the Economic Planning Unit of the Prime Minister's Department and the Malaysian Water Association. Today, we are honored to have with us Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Mustafa Muhammad, Prime Minister's Department, who will be delivering the opening remarks for this important webinar entitled Sustainable Development Goal number 6, Rising Up to Ensure Clean Water and Sanitation for All. Thank you, Yang Berhormat, for taking the time to speak to the participants today. Also, a very big appreciation to the Director General of the Economic Planning Unit, Datuk Seri Saiful Anwar Dubai Hassan, for his welcoming remarks just now. And I take this opportunity to thank EPU for entrusting the Malaysian Water Association to be the co-organizer of this webinar. Tan Sri, Datuk, ladies and gentlemen, I'm indeed pleased to see a lot of water industry stakeholders here from the list of participants and representing a wide spectrum of the water and wastewater sector, and also the supporting services related to this industry, who are concerned and interested and showed their interest to understand the challenges and also at the same time share the achievements in the Sustainable Development Goal number 6 on water and sanitation, both locally and globally. I'm impressed by the commitment and support shown by the participation of this webinar from both the public and the private sectors in the implementation of the SDG, specifically looking at the targets in the years to come. Today, this commitment shown is very encouraging, and your contribution is indeed needed now more than ever. As you all know, water globally is threatened by the twin threats of increasing demands and withdrawals, abstraction, and the degradation of water resources and other associated ecosystem problems due to climate change, pollution, and other unprecedented events. The water and sanitation increasing crisis events demand a holistic, systemic, and multilateral responses. This more so as water is required to deliver almost to all the other SDGs, or the 16 SDGs, beside being an SDG by itself, from the global health to food security, and it is essential for the resilience to climate change. Today, UNDP reports shows that Sustainable Development Goal number 6 is quite badly off track in some countries. In this regard, it is interesting to know what is the state of the progress of SDG number 6 in our own country, Malaysia. The water sector in Malaysia has made enormous progress and has gained high recognition globally for the achievements. Yet, more work needs to be done to ensure that all individuals have access to a safely managed water supply service that is not only reliable, safe, and affordable, but also meet communities' multifaceted needs. However, there are some parts of the SDG 6 that we might be still behind, in particular the subsector of IWRM. And furthermore, we must remember that water and climate change are inextricably linked through the hydrological cycle. Progress on SDG 6 will face deepening challenges as our climate continues to change. Datuk, tuan-tuan dan puan-puan, I understand that the purpose of the webinar and discussion is to provide a platform for sharing experiences and reviewing progress and efforts for SDG number 6 in Malaysia, and for learning and preparing for stakeholders to rise up to the coming challenges, including sharing ideas and accelerate implementation and monitoring. I applaud very much my colleagues in EPU and also the organizer from MWA for organizing this discussion and bringing together with us experts and stakeholders, which I think we are going to experience today. This opportunity, which I hope will be on regular basis, will help to keep our country up to the pace, probably for future challenges. I would like to congratulate the organizers for having brought together the right stakeholders at the right time at the place where we are now in this forum. Achieving the SDG will require national and state government commitment, private sectors, also NGOs like the Malaysian Water Association, civil societies, and communities to make difficult decisions based on thoughtful and genuine commitment to SDGs. As in many development initiatives, we know that unless there is a strong willingness to do so, the SDG risks being relegated to just being too hard to do basket. It is my hope that stakeholders represented here from wide spectrum will follow these reports and views from the panelists and to provide valuable feedbacks and input to the government and contribute to the overall holistic and coordinated plan for the country to meet the challenges of SDG 6 in ensuring safe, reliable, and affordable water for all. I wish all of you a fruitful webinar, and I hope that your support will be continuous to the Malaysian Water Association in our endeavor to make this industry sustainable one. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih.
Thank you, Yang Berusaha Engineer Dr. Mahmud Asari bin Daud, for your special remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, before we move to our main agenda today, let us hear the opening remarks that will be delivered by Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Mustafa Muhammad, Minister in the Prime Minister Department Ekonomi. Dipersilakan Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera. Datuk Insinyur Kadir Din, former President of the Malaysian Water Association. Datuk Insinyur Lim Chow Hock, Network Manager MyCDNet. Insinyur Haja Bibi Zarina, Deputy DG, Department of Irrigation and Drainage, JPS Malaysia. Dr. Su Tai Te, CEO Global Peace Foundation Malaysia. Your Malaysia Associate Professor Dr. Noyati Abdullah, Council Member of the Malaysian Water Association. Distinguished guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's webinar entitled Rising Up to Ensure Clean Water and Sanitation for All. This webinar is organized jointly by the Economic Planning Unit, EPU, and the Malaysian Water Association. Today's session will focus on SDG 6, which aims to ensure the availability and sustainability of clean water and provide equal access to a proper sanitation system for all. We've done 7 webinars on SDGs since the middle of last year. The first one was on poverty, and today's webinar is on water. Ladies and gentlemen, currently in Malaysia, about 96% of our population has access to clean and treated water, while 85% has access to connected sewerage services. However, the disparity between states remains significant, as only 89% of the population in Sabah and 72% in Kelantan have access to clean water. Many parts of rural Malaysia have no access to clean and treated water at all. Improving access to clean and treated water, especially in rural and remote parts of our country, is therefore a priority for us. Of course, we have a number of issues and challenges. These include the poor management of water resources, affecting the supply and quality of water, tariffs in a number of states which do not cover operating costs, and non-revenue water, or NRW. NRW is high, particularly in the rural areas. The failure of the produced water to reach intended consumers is mainly due to the leakages from aging infrastructure. These include pipes and tanks as well. The lack of awareness on the importance of water resources among Malaysians has also contributed to the problems we are facing today. There is no robust platform for inclusive local community involvement in water governance. The lack of attention surrounding the water sector has led to high wastage. Furthermore, the absence of data-driven and science-based decision-making has also contributed to the inefficient management of the water sector. Unfortunately, Malaysia does not have a centralized database to integrate water-related data and information that separately resides in different agencies. Ladies and gentlemen, the water sector transformation 2040, a two-decade agenda outlined in the 12th Malaysia Plan, will enable the water sector to significantly contribute to national growth and wealth creation by becoming a regional water industry hub. This medium to long-term initiative is being developed to set a strategic direction towards positioning the sector as a dynamic growth engine while ensuring water security for all Malaysians. The first phase of this initiative is being carried out in the 12th Malaysia Plan, which focuses on accelerating the adoption of integrated water resources management and laying the foundation for the execution of subsequent phases. Ladies and gentlemen, within the next 5 years, the government will employ 5 strategies, which are empowering people as the drivers of water sector transformation, strengthening governance at the federal, state, and district levels, enhancing data-driven decision-making capabilities, ensuring sustainable financing, and finally, developing sustainable and cost-effective infrastructure. With the help of other stakeholders, it is our intention to provide safe access to clean water and adequate sanitation systems to 98% of Malaysians living in rural areas and establish an integrated Centre for Water Data Research and Development. Ladies and gentlemen, as Malaysia transitions towards becoming a high-income nation by the year 2025, we must collectively join hands to prioritize water, energy, and environmental preservation. Thank you to the Malaysia Water Association for co-organizing today's webinar. I hope participants will find this to be a very useful platform. Sekian, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri Mustafa Muhammad for the opening remarks. Now, ladies and gentlemen, let's jump straight to our main agenda today, presentation and discussion session. This session will be moderated by Yang Berusaha Dr. Nur Hayati binti Abdullah, Council Member of Malaysian Water Association. To our participants who wish to ask questions or to give views, please drop your questions or views into the chat box or comment section. Remember to state your name and your organization in your question. Without any further ado, I'll pass the presentation and discussion session on Sustainable Development Goal SDG6, Rising Up to Ensure Clean Water and Sanitation for All, to Yang Berusaha Associate Professor Dr. Nur Hayati binti Abdullah. Dr. Hayati, the screen is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and a very good morning. Thank you to my friend Mr. Hidayat from Economic Planning Unit. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, I'm Nur Hayati from Malaysian Water Association and working at University Technology Malaysia UTM Kuala Lumpur campus. This morning, it is my great pleasure to be moderating our esteemed 4 speakers for the webinar that has been mentioned and has been introduced by our MC this morning. The Economic Planning Unit, Prime Minister's Department, together with the Malaysian Water Association, jointly organized this online forum with the theme Rising Up to Ensure Clean Water and Sanitation for All. And we have for you outlined 4 esteemed speakers representing various sectors in water and sanitation to be giving their thoughts and also remarks on this very important topic leading to the water sector transformation 2-decade agenda, as mentioned by Yang Berhormat Datuk Seri earlier on in his speech. So ladies and gentlemen, Sustainable Development Goal 6 on water and sanitation seeks to achieve universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water, as well as adequate and equitable sanitation for everyone, including those residing in developing countries, as well as our country, Malaysia. So without further ado, let me introduce our panelists. Today we have Yang Berusaha, Engineer Haja Bibi Zarina binti Cik Omar, Deputy Director General Specialist Sector, Department of Irrigation and Drainage. We have Yang Berbahagia, Datuk Engineer Abdul Kadir Muhammad Din, Immediate Past President of the Malaysian Water Association. We have Yang Berbahagia, Datuk Engineer Lim Chow Hock, Network Manager, Malaysian Capacity Development Network for Sustainable Water Management, MyCDNet. And we have Yang Berusaha, Dr. Su Tai Teh, CEO of Global Peace Foundation Malaysia. We will start with our first speaker this morning. I think we have our Puan Bibi online. Assalamualaikum Puan, good morning.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Good morning Puan.
Good morning.
Very
Yes.
happy to have you on our webinar. And let me do a little bit of introduction of our first speaker for this morning. Yang Berusaha Engineer Bibi Zarina Cik Omar, Deputy Director General Specialist Sector, Department of Irrigation and Drainage, is a professional engineer with over 36 years of working experience in the Department of Irrigation and Drainage district, state and federal levels. So throughout her service, she has served in hydrology, urban drainage, corporate, river, coastal and flood divisions before holding the post of State Director of Federal Territory in Kuala Lumpur. She has vast experience in National Disaster Management Agency, being seconded to NADMA as the Director of Mitigation. And during her tenure, she has collaborated with many scientists from various local universities, including UTM, UKM, and UTHM, and abroad, particularly in UK and ASEAN, to explore researches and application of sciences in disaster risk reduction. So on her current post, she is Premier as a Deputy Director General, Specialist Sector, and apparently she is the first female engineer working as one of the specialists among the 4 top management in the Department of Irrigation and Drainage Malaysia. She plays a central part in the provision, management, and participate at all levels in water resources program. And it is my greatest pleasure to be introducing the only rose among thorns this morning among the speakers, Yang Berusaha Engineer Bibi Zarina. The floor is yours on your topic, enhancing awareness and mindset of local population about the importance of water resources. Persilakan Puan.
Terima kasih. Thank you very much, Dr. Nur Hayati, our moderator. I will share my screen before I start my presentation. Oh. Okay, can you all see my screen now?
Yes, Puan.
Okay, thank you very much. So today, I will be talking on the topic of enhanced awareness and mindset of local population about the importance of water resources. Okay, let's move on. First of all, we will look at the overview of our national water resource management in Malaysia. So This is an example of a catchment. Many people do not understand what a catchment means. So this is an example of a catchment where the water comes actually from the mountain and it flows right down to the sea. And within the catchment, there are many activities. And as you can see in this picture here, 6 of the main function of GPS actually is within the catchment. We control in terms of water resources and hydrology, where we have many stations placed at in the hinterland right up to the coastal area. And we have river gauges all along the river, and we also have the lembangan sungai, or bahagian pengurusan lembangan sungai in charge of the river management within the catchment. And also in the catchment, there are cities and townships where saliran bersaalam, or the manual manual saliran bersaalam is being used. Stormwater management is being used within the catchment. And also, of course, we also have flood mitigation within the catchment, where we control areas which are flooded. We do flood mitigation projects, we do dams, we do detention ponds, and we also have the coastal zone, of course. Yeah. So within the catchment, GPS actually applies all its function within the catchment. And the ID strategic plan for 2021 to 2025, our vision is actually to propel national economy by becoming a leader in water resources engineering. And our mission is to protect and manage water resources for the sustainability of economic, environmental, and also quality of life. And there are many strategies which we need to do to achieve this vision and mission. So among the strategies, which is related to the topic today is the 5th strategy on improving social inclusion, meaning that involving the the public. Yeah. So under the improving social inclusion, we have 7 action plans, which include awareness, support, and capacity building, services and government delivery, domestic and also international strategic collaboration. Moving on, let us look at the Malaysian water resources scenario. So where does our water come from and go actually? Yeah. So we know that Malaysia, maybe many of you now know that we are actually getting about 300 millimeters of rainfall annually, or 972 MCM per year. And this water will normally, when it falls onto the ground, or where all the water goes is actually accounted for. Okay, so most of the water, well, 51% of the water actually flows as surface runoff back to the sea, while 42% is actually evaporated through evaporation or evapotranspiration, and about 7% infiltrate into the ground as groundwater recharge. Okay, and now we also know that what are the water demand in our country. Yeah? So in our country, most of the water, the surface water that we have actually it goes for paddy plantation, paddy cultivation, about 51%, and potable only 33%, and fisheries about 8%, and non-paddy crops cultivation 7%, and livestock about 1%. So this water demand varies from country to country. This is for our country. And let us now look at the Malaysia's water scenario. So the key facts on the river basin in Malaysia as our water resources, we have about 2,986 river basin in Malaysia, meaning that we have we actually go and calculate all where are all the river basins, and we have this much of river basin in the country. But out of that 2,986 river basin, 186 189 river basins is covering 95% of the 2,986 river basin. So major river basin is 198, but small rivers accumulated to 2,986. Yeah. So the big river basins are like Sungai Pahang, Sungai Perak, Sungai Kelantan, major river basin, Sungai Rajang. And the small ones are those which flows direct into the sea along the coast mainly. And the length of rivers throughout Malaysia is 17,344 kilometers with a total length of 60,556 kilometers. Yeah, and out of these. Out of the many rivers that we have, or DOE actually monitored 672 rivers, out of which our river water quality from 29 to 2020 has improved slightly. Yeah? So we have like the clean river has improved from 61% to 66%, and polluted river has reduced from 59%, from 9% to 5%. Yeah, there are 55 numbers to 34 numbers of rivers which are polluted in the country. So this is still a lot, and we need to do more activities with the people on awareness to make sure that the river will be kept clean. On issues, we have flooding. As we all know, flood is something that is common in our country, and almost 10.1% of the area in Malaysia is susceptible to flood, which causes about 36 billion of annual average damage to the country. So this is quite a lot. Yeah? And the affected people is about 21% of the people in Malaysia is actually affected by floods. And on water resources, 97% of water supply in Malaysia is derived from rivers and reservoir, while 23% increase in the we are expecting an increase in demand by 2050 to additional of 23%. So we need to take care of our water resources so that we have enough water resources to supply water to all our people, as what has been mentioned by Datuk Sri just now in his opening speech. We need water until not just until 2050, even furthermore. So we need to really look and take care of our water resources. And on pollution, as we can see in the slides here, we collected about 300,000 tons of rubbish every year in the river. Okay, this is which is collected, rubbish which is dumped into the river and collect about 300,000 tons. So how can you can imagine 300,000 tons? So we equate it to about 110 Olympic-sized swimming pool. So imagine we have that much of rubbish dumped into our river. Yeah, so we need to do a lot of awareness program to ensure that we can reduce a lot of this before it goes into our river. And then now let us look at Malaysia's SDG performance. Okay, so from the SDG report produced by UN, Malaysia ranked number 65 out of 165 countries which reported to the SDG reporting. Yeah, so and our score is 70.9, which is almost like average. Yeah, and if we look at SDG6 from this table here, Sdg6, we scored slightly more than 75%. Yeah, and Sdg6 consists of many. There are many elements that we need to report. DID reported on 6.5.1 on IRRM implementation, and also 6.5.2 on transboundary. Yeah, together with our ministry. So this is where we are now, our status. Yeah, and not really that bad, but not also too good. Yeah. Now, let us look at the issues related to water resources in this country. So this is extracted from the report by NAHRIM, that is National Water Research Institute of Malaysia, on a report on the climate change adaptation framework for water sectors. And if we look at river, there are changes in the mean annual rainfall runoff and low flow and also high flow. So what it means here is that the annual runoff is changing. I mentioned earlier that our annual rainfall is approximately 300,000 millimeters per year, but it is also changing, and the pattern of how the rainfall falls onto our country is also changing. For example, if we take last year's flooding, nobody expected that West Coast will be flooded during the monsoon, because monsoon season is actually well, it is meant for the eastern for the east coast region to be flooded. But however, last year our west coast was flooded. So there are changes already. So that is why it took many people off guard, during the previous flooding, because everybody was actually expecting that the east coast would be flooded, but somehow the rainfall pattern changes to the west coast, and the low and high flow also changes. When sometimes it becomes too dry, and sometimes it becomes too high. And as what we can normally experience now, especially people living in KL, and I think the trend is also expanding throughout the country. When it rains, it is very high and intense, very short period. Yeah, so that means in very short period you get very high, intense flow, and which can easily cause flash floods. So that is what is happening due to climate change. And on sea or coastal is on the sea level rise. So it is predicted that the sea level rise will be rising from 1.7 to 3.1 millimeters per year. However, in Malaysia, we are expecting the rise to be slightly higher due to the local climate and also the topographical condition of our country. So Nahrim has more information on this. On dams and lake, there are increasing water storages. So this is an issue because we need to have enough water for the coming years. And on groundwater, there is reduction in the potential recharge. Yeah. Okay, and what are we doing? CASA's Environmental Sustainable Strategic Plan, we are looking into the initiatives to ensure that the environmental is sustainable in Malaysia, and we are doing it through 4 thrusts, that is to empower governance through green growth and also strategic collaboration and social inclusiveness. Again, in the 4 trusts, we also have one focus on social inclusiveness, where we want to be close to the people, to empowerment to the local people, to get them involved in these strategies. Okay, so that we are not actually leaving the people behind. So they have to be on board together with us. And under this, there are also river trade programs, which I will speak more later. So under JPS, to ensure that we can achieve a good river management or water resources management, we have this program which we call Integrated River Basin Management, where it is a process of coordinating conservation, management, and development of water, land, and also related resources across sectors within a given river basin in order to maximize the economic and social benefit derived from the water resources in an equitable manner, while preserving and when necessary restoring freshwater ecosystem. Okay, and to achieve this, we have four objectives. There is to ensure sufficient water, to ensure clean water, reduce flood risk, and also enhance environmental conservation. And how do we go about achieving this? Under IRBM, we have these 8 components or 8 pillars, how we want to achieve the 4 objectives, the 4 set objectives. Yeah. So under the 8 pillars or 8 components, we have one component on public awareness, where we need to engage with the people to come on board with us on this awareness, to ensure that we take care of our water resources. So what are the ID's initiatives to enhance awareness and also mindset of the people? So these are the initiatives that we have planned to enhance awareness and also mindset of the local population through conservation, engagement, volunteerism, and also recognition. Okay, so this is what we have been doing now. So under conservation, DID has actually produced many hydrological procedures, manuals to help in conserving the water resources. So an example here, which I put up here, is actually on rainfall harvesting, where everyone can do on rainfall harvesting. We know that in the olden days, if there's heavy rain, the olden people, they will put tanks or pails, to collect water and reuse the water. So this is actually the simplest way of rainfall harvesting. Anyone can do it. So it is a supplementary source of water supply and non-potable use for household, commercial, landscape, and livestock, and also agricultural. This rainfall harvesting water which has been harvested can be used for non-commercial, for household, for landscape, for livestock, and also agricultural. So it reduces the reliance to potable water, and also we can introduce such a sustainable strategy like having green roof and also stormwater facilities, and reduces land erosion, also flooding caused by the runoff. So this simple conservation, we also produce manuals on this rainfall harvesting. So you can look at the manual on urban stormwater management or also rainwater harvesting to look at some practices which can be used, practical examples which can be used. And on engagement, we do a lot of programs on engagement, and we have this Hari Air Sedunia, World Water Day, and also World River Day. We celebrated, and when we get all the people to come on board to do a program together with the children, the schools, we engage schools, universities, the young and the old will come. We get all these Rukun Tetangga people to come as well and do program with us during the World Water Day celebration to make sure that everybody understand and want to conserve the water resources. And one initiative is the National River Trace, or Denai Sungai Kebangsaan. This is a pet project by our KSU. It is one of initiative to control as a control mechanism for river pollution and also flood risk. As we all know, Malaysia has many rivers, as I have mentioned earlier. We have many rivers, and many actually people will sit up behind the. It's not we don't make a river as our river frontage. Okay, so many rivers actually behind, so nobody bothers. And when nobody bothers about the river banks or then it's easier for people to go and throw rubbish, chemicals or whatever into the river. So if we have this river trail program organized Sungai Kebangsaan, we make sure that there are many trails along the river where we make it nice and beautiful so that people can jog along the river, along the trails, and then people will visit the river and look at the river. So now not many people want to go to the river bank and touch the river because the river is so dirty. So we want to bring people back to the river by having these river trails. Yeah. So and it also can create shared responsibility among various parties, especially the locals. And it is also nature-based activity, and it can also stimulate economic-based activities as well. Okay, and under the as we all know that JPS also embarked on this River of Life program, or we call it ROPOP, River of Life Public Outreach Program. This was actually we have completed the program for our ROPOP in KL. But these are some of the target audience of Europop. Okay, we engage with many people. Okay, for the general public, educational institution, local communities, food establishment, hawkers, wet markets, and workshop, industries, corporates, and also developers. So this program can be replicated to many other areas. So there are reports and write-ups on the ROPOP program. So if anybody is interested, they can get the report and can replicate this program in other river basins. Yeah. Next, this is an example of the Roadmap program which they carry out in phases throughout the KL river basin, Sungai Kelang River Basin. These are examples of what they have carried out. And these are like key initiatives they have done, like KL free morning, KL car free morning, and then we have Kembara Sungai, we have tree planting, and then also local agenda 21 being carried out. Yeah. And another activity which we want to encourage is on the volunteerism. Yeah. The term used by our KSU is kudah, that is kutip sampah sambil riadah, or plogging. Yeah, this is being carried out. We do a lot of this kudah plogging program every weekend. Actually, every weekend when everybody is free, we will just go down to the river and then collect rubbish or whatever along the river. Yeah, so it's a very simple program which can everybody can do it. The locals can do it. You don't have to have big programs like makan-makan or whatever. You just go and jog and then just collect the rubbish, and then that's all you need to do. You know, don't have to do big programs or whatever. Yeah? This is to inculcate values among the local, to care for the river and preserve the beauty of the river from being polluted. A simple program which everybody can do. So this one we encourage a lot. We encourage everyone to just carry out the program. Doesn't need to be a big program. Tak payah nak pasang banner or whatever. You just go and jog and collect the rubbish. And then finally on recognition, we have this anugerah which we call Anugerah Khas Sumber Air, or AKSA. This was introduced in 2016. It is a special award created and implemented in line with the National River Day celebration, and it is an appreciation and also encouragement for the involvement of community and NGOs and public. This is actually a way of giving recognition to the people, to the community, which has contributed to make sure that the river is clean and safe and beautiful. And another new recognition that we have introduced is on Wira Sungai. This was just introduced recently. During the Hari Air World Water Day recently. Wira Sungai is actually very simple. We just look at the media social network, and we just find out who there are many TikToks, and from media social you can find people who are actually who put up in MedSource what they have done to improve the river. Yeah. Okay. So that is one of it. Okay. And in conclusion, I would say that how do we want to get the people to come on board with us? We need to have the people. They need to be informed. You know, they need to be informed and educate to change their behavior and to build the policy support. And as a person, we also want to be consulted, kan? So you need to be consulted to seek inputs from local people, to gauge their opinion and also preferences, what they want to do, and becoming involved. We want to promote local people to come and participate in decision making and to build trust and also stewardship. So the people need to be informed, consulted, and also being involved before we can engage them properly. So this is the 4 way of how we want the people to come on board with us. You know, we cannot just we do not want just the government to be doing things, but we want the people to also come on board. Okay, so I think with that, I think I will end my presentation. Our moderator is already smiling at me. So I think I've come to the end of my presentation anyway. So thank you very much, Dr. Nurhayati.
Thank you very much, Yang Berusaha Engineer Haja Bibi Zarina binti Cik Omar, Deputy Director General, Specialist Sector, Department of Irrigation and Drainage. And what caught my mind during your presentation, Puan, was the average country ranking, whereby Malaysia is scoring slightly more than 70% for the SDG achievement at country level, and whereby we were ranked at 65 over 165 in terms of SDG achievement. So ladies and gentlemen, we are still in the quest of overcoming the issues associated with that uncontrollable, intense rain with excessive flow causing flash flood all over Malaysia. And Puan Bibi also mentioned about the Integrated River Basin Management, a celebration of World Water Day 2022, which focuses on making the invisible visible in relation to the groundwater. So distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, should you have any question for Puan Bibi, please kindly note your question in the chat box, and we thank you for those participants who registered earlier on and put on your questions in your Google form. We take note of your questions. And now, without further ado, let me introduce our second speaker yang berbahagia, Datuk Engineer Abdul Kadir Muhammad Din. Tidak asing lagi dalam sektor air, our immediate past president of Malaysian Water Association. So Datuk Kadir has more than 36 years of industry experience in water and sewerage sectors. His main expertise is on conceptual and strategic business planning and management on water, wastewater, byproducts, green technology, research and development, and environment, including risk management and optimization and maximization of operation cost. So Yang Berbahagia Datuk, he received his degree in civil engineering from University of Strathclyde, Glasgow, Scotland. He is a professional engineer with vast exposure in the engineering consultancy, having been involved in public listed company, government-owned national water asset company, and sewerage company at various senior management position. He was our immediate president of Malaysian Water Association and has been involved as network manager of Aqua Jaring, which involved of the 8 sea countries, and served as the board of director for Ranhill Sdg Sendirian Berhad. So without further ado, Yang Berbahagia Datuk, the floor is yours, and on your title today, Achieving Sustainable Development Goal for Clean Water and Sanitation. Dipersilakan Yang Berbahagia Datuk.
Thank you, Madam Dr. Nur Hayati. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Fellow distinguished panelists, Yang Berbahagia Datuk-Datuk, ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to present today this important topic that is touching to our heart, that is on clean water sanitation. Our Hajah Bibi just now has really given good presentation on the upstream that will save a lot of my time in explaining what needs to be done on the source. So we're talking about the real part of it on the downstream, that is the potable water and also sanitation. So the outline of my presentation today is not many, it's about 7. I'll just give a snapshot. Then I'll give you the view of the way forward or where we should go and to achieve this Sdg6. So today topic is Sdg6. Yang Berbahagia, Yang Muhammad Datuk Sri Mustafa just now has already mentioned. EPU has already gone through a roadshow, and this is the part of the Sdg6 focusing on water and sanitation. So I will bring back one step backwards. Where we are. Next slide is to show what is Sdg6. So out of the 17, Sdg6 is number 6, as you can see, and all this SDG is, in fact, to look at how to end the poverty and protect the Earth's environment and climate, and to ensure that everywhere people can enjoy the healthy living condition and sustainable environment. And Malaysia has signed together with the other 192 countries in nationwide in September 2015, and to adopt this 2030 agenda of SDG. So I will move forward on to show focusing on SDG. What is it that we are looking at? Let's look at the target. Next. This is the indicators of what being said by the United Nations. There are about few indicators here, focusing all on drinking and sanitation, and it touched upon the ambient of water quality. It's been largely talked by the Bibi just now, and the rest is about operation, and also to touch upon the local communities. So these are the indicators. Let's look at the targets. Next. These are the targets that we should achieve. basically is looking at how safe it is and basically it's affordable drinking water. And then it's about adequate and equitable sanitation. It's also reliability of that water also come into play, and how we improve the water quality must be said just now. And of course, looking at the increased water use efficiency, which the YB Dato' Mustafa has mentioned, the witnesses, and I'm proud to see that he's have the courage to say where we are now in terms of managing our water. And the integrated water resource management, that is the goal of RMK12 under the ambit of WST, or Water Sector Transformation 2040. And this is the subject matter of focus in RMK12 that is currently ongoing. The last is not to look at the how to protect and store water-related ecosystem, and that involves the water catchment and how we preserve this water for now and also for the future generation. Next is additional targets. Next, please. The additional target is the international cooperation and capacity building that involve a lot of developing countries in water and sanitation related activities and programs. And we talk about the taps. We have 7 taps that we have and need to be managed. It's a strong word, managing the 7 taps for our potable water. That includes a lot of technology. And last not least is being said just now. I'm glad to hear a lot of programs done by River. That is the participation of local communities, but much has been said to do the same for water and sanitation. Next. Okay, this is the aspirational goal targets. I just read the highlighted one is defined as aspirational and global, which government setting its own national targets guided by the global level of ambition, but taking into account national circumstances. So this is very important. This is where we have looked at our targets and how we're going to achieve that. Depends on how we manage all those key targets. Next. So this is just an example that covering much been said just now, how we covered the rural and urban areas. What has been done now in our scenario is the rural has been not achieved to the target that we want, and I'm glad it's been highlighted, and hopefully when we reach 2030 or 2040, we should be covering a lot of rural areas on the accessibility to water supply and also on sanitation facilities. So this is just an example of the national target setting. It's quite related to what I've presented earlier, so that everyone knows where we are and how it's being monitored. Next. Another sample that is on water. This is on sanitation, how it's being managed. I'm sure most of you knows how our sewage is being handled. We have this National Sewage Company, IWK, but nevertheless, not many people know that we have about 5,000 treatment plants that are managed privately. So, but any time that they was being polluted, they will say one of the source is sewage, but don't forget sewage is also being managed by the other private parties. Next. This is very important. This is from the UNDP to show where we are in terms of all the targets to the individual specific areas of drinking water, sanitation. So drinking water, we are 94%, sanitation 77%, not too bad. Hygiene still no indicator there, but wastewater, how we manage the wastewater is 88%. Water quality, there's no marking there. Efficiency is there. Water stress 3%, water management 63%, transboundary 2%, ecosystem 15%, cooperation 28 million, and participation, there's no indicator there. So this is the result of what being shared with United Nations as of today, and this is the scoring of where we are in the specific area of Sdg6. I go next. This is another interesting findings from the Jeffrey Sachs Center, Sunway University. this is the scores of Sdg6 in all the states in Malaysia. So we break into all the wilayah Persekutuan, mainly Federal Territory also is all there. And if you look at this ranking of Sdg6, 4 of the states, that is about 25% scored below. And as you can see, the one that in red has scored less than 80%. If you gathered more, less than 90%, about 44% of the states that scored below 90, and that is if you include the orange. Johor's being the one that been looked at, need to have a significant changes remain, and it's a challenge for them to catch up with the rest. And if you look, those that scored more than 90% is about 56%, and those near 100 is about 38%. And overall, in terms of the Sdg6, is about 84.489, and the challenges remain and moderately improving. Hopefully, we can achieve to a certain level by year 2030. And this is the study done by the Jeffrey Sachs Center, Someway University. So it's very interesting facts to show where we are, and this need to be shared with the public, so that we need the involvement of all in order for us to achieve, because the deadline, no one is going to be left behind. So they need to know where we are. Otherwise, you'll be in a cooperation state. You will not do anything for the future in terms of Sdg6 compared to the other goals. Because if you look at the ranking overall, as what being presented just now, we are still not up to the marking. And in terms of all the countries, we need to do more and work harder and together. It's about unity. So next. This is the challenges. Again, I just pick up 3 from the study. This safe drinking water, sanitation, and ambient water quality. So if you look at the safe drinking water, there are 3 states that fall behind in ensuring 95% of water of population have access to safely managed drinking water services. So still below. If you look at sanitation, not too bad. We have done well. More than 90% have access to safely managed sanitation services. Again, we have to do more in order to achieve a better rating. But I would have to say that the worst part is the ambient water quality. And based on the facts, 3 states have this significant industrial base have done poorly for this indicator, because these are where you have the pollution happening in these 3 states. So Malaysia has done extremely well in SDG, but we have poor track record in maintaining good ambient water. In short, we have a lot of pollution, and the record is not good. And this is where we should focus on. I'm glad to hear a lot of being said just now in the rivers, and this is we have to put a bit more effort, and we need to have a buy-in with the community and the public at large. Next. This is my last slide. Just a way forward where we should be heading. First is about the holistic management. We are still working in silo because and the Sdg6 cannot be a standalone. We have 17 Sdg, and all this need to be looked at under one roof. If all the individual Sdg were to work alone, then still you're working in silo, because it's all interrelated, especially on water side, because water, anything that involves water, that's where the government, I'm glad that EPU has embarked on this WST 2040 and they accepted the way forward to turn around the water sector from cost center to profit center, and that contribute to the national growth. And it's a good strategy that will appreciate those water industry players. There must be a team to look at SDG, dedicated team, and a task force to monitor, to make sure that we are working under one roof and not in silos. We need a good driver for this, strong and good driver. I have to say, with due respect, it should not be politicized because water is for everyone and we should manage properly. And the efficient water management has been said by the minister just now. We have a poor management on water. We are not water stressed country. We have a lot of water, but we do not know how to manage after centuries. We still trying to find a formula on how to manage the abundant source of water. So last not least, under the holistic management, also be mentioned by the minister just now, is about the technology, the center of technology, which we have already. Nahrim is one being set up, and hopefully it can be upgraded to become the hub for the water. So if you look at data, also be mentioned by the minister, we must have a central hub for water data bank, and the data sharing is very important, and look at transparency, but of course be careful on water security. And if you embark into the modernization of ICT world, we need to have a nationwide 5G coverage, not to the extent of climbing a trees to get a line. That's what being said in the media. So this need to be looked at carefully, because if we want to go into at par with the developed country, we must have this in place. If you look at Korean, they have this done. When they develop their gadgets, they look at the coverage, and this is where we should move forward. And being the head of subsector in IR Water 4.0 in Academy of Science, I can't help by including this. It's about how you manage the data that we have in the water sectors through the IR Water 4.0. And it's very important because that will also make a lot of savings, and monitoring will be done precisely in terms of precision. Execution and enforcement, we should have the right policy, law, and regulation, and there must be some changes to this to accommodate the future way forward in managing water, and also especially on the data sharing. The protection of water catchment areas, much been said, but less been done. Still, we have encroachment of the water catchment areas that affect the source, and the government cannot do alone. We need a lot of eyes and ears out there to make sure that this is well protected. One area that I always mention most of my forum and events is about enforcement. We have a very weak enforcement on pollution to water sources, and things are recurring over and over again. And I would say that the lesson learned is not there. So we need to be serious in this, because enforcement is not about getting revenue from this. It's just about deterring those polluters from doing things. And there must be a proper place for managing this waste. As you look just now, the statistics shows the rubbish alone is about 300,000 tons a year being thrown into the rivers, and that's equivalent to 110 Olympic-sized swimming pool. So imagine the enormous volume, and there are ways and means to turn this waste into wealth. So financially sustainable is about circular economy. This also has much been said, but less been done. We need a strong support, and it involves incentive to the private party to participate and contribute, because government alone cannot do this. So maybe there must be a way for the private party to come in earlier at this stage and make some proposal, because it's always cheaper to build now than later. And you have to look at the holistic solution to the problem of what we have now. The right value of water and treated water and sewerage need also to be looked at. People need to be informed of the true value of this water. We have this treated and water and sewerage tariff setting mechanism. What is lacking is the raw water. So how you price the raw water? Because the raw water, you have few gradings, and this grade need to be standardized, so that when especially when the water operator abstract the water from the river, they must be paying at the right price, and that will be standardized. The tariff setting mechanism is already in place, but has yet to be implemented. The water operators is suffering, especially the few states like Pahang, and also not to forget sewerage sector has been left behind in their operation. And I recall the minister said the current tariff does not cover the OPEX. And this is where it's lacking, and I think the water operators is struggling. The last not least is about environmental tax. This is contribution towards preserving the rivers and also all the sources, and also the 7 tax. Last not least is what part of the SDG is how to engage the public. We need a continuous public awareness program. We have seen the special program done for the rivers. There's a river trail, but we have yet to see the similar program for water supply and sewerage. So although the water and sewerage is being managed by individual parties by each state, and sewerage is nationwide, but we still need the government support to do this continuous program. And this also involves the public participation program, because we want them to have a sense of ownership, because the facilities is for them. So we have to make them realize that this is ownership of all the assets, not to the government, is for them. Because if you look at the housing areas, when they buy the property, it includes the infra, and this is part of and parcel of the ownership. Human capital asset is very important for continuation of education. Last not least is to build intellectual and caring society, and let them demand for what they are entitled for, rather than they wait and then they just want free. Just take one example, current scenario, the low cost is paying 2 ringgit and continuing to pay 2 ringgit, but they do not know the value of 2 ringgit for sewerage. What they're paying for these unseen services done in the service sector. So these are the areas that the way forward hopefully can be taken up by the various parties, and we should work as under one roof, not on for holistic purposes, not on silos anymore, and everyone is involved to be in line with no one is being left behind. So if you look at the national Sdg Roadmap, I just recap. We are in the phase 2, focusing on the post-2020 goals and target, and moving on to the phase 3 in trying to meet the goals. And there are weaknesses in this, but we have to accommodate new areas that can support the SDG. So with that, I thank you for your kind attention, and hopefully there's any question, I'm prepared to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Yang Berbahagia Datuk Engineer Abdul Kadir Muhammad Din, immediate past President of the Malaysian Water Association, for the meaningful insights for us to refresh our knowledge and understanding on Sdg6, its goals and its target. And Datuk also emphasized on the 5 way forwards towards paving the pathway for Malaysia in achieving the remaining goals and targets within the Malaysian capacity and global rules. So thank you so much, Yang Berbahagia Datuk. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions for Yang Berbahagia Datuk Kadir, please kindly put your questions in the chat box, and we shall now continue to our next speaker, Yang Berbahagia Datuk Engineer Lim Chow Hop, Network Manager, Malaysian Capacity Development Network for Sustainable Water Management, or famously known as MyCDNet. It is my great pleasure to introduce Yang Berbahagia Datuk Lim, an honorary fellow of the Institution of Engineers Malaysia IEM and a fellow of the Academy of Sciences Malaysia. He was the president of the Institution of Engineers Malaysia IEM until 2016, and currently sits as the IEM Council as past president, and honorary fellow of the ASEAN Federation of Engineering Organization and a fellow of ASEAN Academy of Engineering and Technology. He was also the president of the ASEAN Federation of Engineering Organization back in 2015. On the academic front, Yang Berbahagia Datuk graduated from University Malaya. So if you have alumni from University Malaya listening today, so you have your alumni speaking. So he has his bachelor in civil engineering and obtained a postgraduate training on water resources technology at University of Birmingham. So currently, Yang Berbahagia Datuk serves as an adjunct professor as well as a member of the Industry Advisory Panel of Civil Engineering Department at University Malaya and a member of the same panel for Civil Engineering Department at Monash University, Malaysia. So Datuk has also retired from the public service, also for 36 years of service with the Department of Irrigation and Drainage Malaysia, with extensive experiences in the fields of irrigation, agricultural drainage, flood mitigation, urban stormwater management, dam engineering, river engineering, water resources management, and water governance. So Datuk Lim has also served as a commissioner of SPAN. So Datuk, the floor is yours, and your topic for today would be coastal reservoir towards enhanced water security. Dipersilakan Yang Berhadi, Datuk.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hayati, our charming moderator, for that very kind introduction. Let me first share my slide first. Let me go to the share slide. Can you see my slide?
Not yet, Datuk.
Yeah, let me get to
Okay.
right, share. Is it there now?
Yes, it's coming up. You can put it on a full screen.
Let me learn how to do that. All right.
It's just, yes.
Yeah, go on the slide mode. Is it all right now? Can you all see this?
Looking good now, Datuk. The
Thank
floor
you.
is yours.
First and foremost, I must thank the Economic Planning Unit of the Prime Minister Department of Malaysia and also the Malaysian Water Association for inviting me to share my thoughts on the achievement of achieving Sdg6. In line with Sdg, in particular Sdg 6.4, on the need to increase the use of fresh water. I'm going to share with you my thoughts on the way forward that time has come for us to look at fresh water right up to the river mouth, and hence the topic on coastal reservoir. I will briefly take you through a quick introductions on the hydrological cycle of Malaysia, the water availability, and also the demand in terms of our needs, and also briefly on water use, but focus more on the current approaches of water extractions in Malaysia for our water supply in particular, including even the irrigation. And then I'll propose on the concept of what the crux of this presentation is about on coastal reservoir. And then I will then relate to how coastal reservoir can play a leading role for addressing Sdg6 in Malaysia, in particular on fresh water resources. Let me again recap. Obviously, I think just now Engineer BB has already told you about rainfall in Malaysia. But basically, I just want to stress that 51% of our total rainfall, amounting to 400 or close to 500 billion meter cube, appear as what we call the surface runoff. And this is what I'll be touching on, all right? With a total rainfall of about close to 3,000 millimeter annual rainfall per year. That is certainly fantastic, I would say enormous. But what happened to this rainfall runoff? Just to recap quickly, 51% appear as surface runoff, and of this 51%, 70% flow out to the sea as flood discharge, or what we call stormwater, during the rainfall time, all right? Another 15%, we also say that it cannot be used because of the sunlight intrusion along the what we call the lower stretch of the river, all right? And remainder, about 15% as what we call is usable, available for us to extract, mainly for purpose of water supply. And I will call this the effective rainfall. And in the study way back in 2011 on the review of the national water resources availability, in terms of total demand, if I express in terms of effective rainfall, all right, another water available for use, by the year 2020 was mentioned that probably is close to about 23% of the effective rainfall. By the year 2050, according to this study, we probably need close to about 18, and most maybe close to about 25%, to 18 billion cubic meter, which is probably about 25, perhaps even may raise up to about 26 to 27% of the effective rainfall. But yet, at certain time of the year and certain time in certain part of the country, we experience what we call water stress. And you'll notice that back to just now the top part where I'm going to try to show you that 70% of the flood discharge of stormwater flows out direct to the sea, untapped. In short, it's not that Malaysia is running out of water. It is that water is running out of Malaysia. All right, let me elaborate on this later on. I think Puan Bibi also, the Dr. Kadir also talk about the issues and challenges. Obviously, I think we know very well that water pollution is the main issues, and I will not go into detail of this, but just roughly to mention that we do experience hydrological drought, though a mild hydrological drought on average about 5 to 7 years, once in 5 to 7 years. And this to a certain extent does lead us to what we call the water stress scenario. Water pollution, I think, has been very touched on. We know that this is the issues, and people always argue that pollution is the main issue. That's why we cannot tap water. But let me debate on this later on. Now, in terms of the current approach on how we extract water, we tap directly from the dam at the upstream. Fresh water, obviously, I'm talking about 17%, totaling about 17% of the total water that we extracted. Another 81% is from where we tap it from what we call the runoff river concept, either with probably at the midstreams, or mainly at the midstreams, or we call it the middle stretch of the river, or perhaps towards the downstream, but before the saline intrusion where we have barrage or regulating barrage. So these two combined together probably come to about 81% of our total extraction needs. Remaining probably about 2% from groundwater, particularly for the state in Kelantan, that will probably include a certain amount for irrigation as well. So you can see that actually most of the water they extract, fresh water, actually at most is up to where there's no saline intrusion. And I'm going to propose to you that we can reach up to the river mouth, all right, where there's still fresh water, and that's my point. And for that, I must say that we also take note that there are also other existing so-called measures or initiatives that we're talking about. Rainwater, the need for rainwater harvesting, obviously in terms of water, the so-called demand management. All right, perhaps even some people are talking about groundwater in certain area, or water recycling, the need for even in some, I think certain states talking about perhaps the need for desalination. But all this combined together, the question is still asked, will they be adequate as we go along past 2050, for instance, all right? The needs in terms of population increase, in terms of development and industrialization. Hence, the way forward is certainly, I think, to look further downstream. We take note that in Malaysia, especially in the Klang Valley, a lot of so-called studies and also implementation has been carried out for what we call the off-river storage system, including perhaps some storage from the so-called ex-mining pool. But basically, tapping water again before the saline intrusion reach of the river. All right, but we can go further. I can go further, one step further. Go right up to the river mouth, and that's what I'm going to focus on coastal reservoir. What does it mean by coastal reservoir? And I think by definition, it's very simple. It's a water storage area within the large water body where the inside and outside waters are different in physical, chemical, and biological parameters. Or simply explained, it's a freshwater reservoir inside a sea water body. Relatively new concept, but I must assure you that even way back in the 1930s, this has already been practiced in certain parts of the world. Obviously, the form of this coastal reservoir right in the river mouth can take many ways. It can be at just the inner part of the river mouth, or go out to the river mouth, outside the river mouth itself, or perhaps even by the sides of the river mouth, at the bank of the river mouth. Primary purpose, as I say, it will certainly complement the sustainable source of water for water supply, apart from certain areas for irrigation, as well as for industrial and commercial use. There's also a secondary purpose. It can also take it as a form of flood defense, all right, for energy storage, for tidal control, irrigation, and perhaps even people are looking at it with coastal reservoir, it enhances what we call development within the coastal zone itself. Now, there is always a serious kind of, I call it a common misunderstanding, particularly so among even also technical people like engineers, who always feel that at the river mouth, water is saline. Hence, there's no way we can tap water right to the river mouth. The answer is false. False. Simply because I think I did mention in one of my slides earlier, through 50% saline, But then we have 70% of stormwater that flows out to the river. And it was actually during this raining time, this when this stormwater is flowing out to the river, we forgot that there's a top layer of fresh water at that moment of time when the water level is high and flowing out right directly to the sea. All right, and just to draw the attention that actually to detect perhaps up to 5% of this stormwater or fresh water is flowing out to the sea during the high rainy season, and that will be enough to quench our thirst. And also the billion-dollar question is certainly, I think all of us concur that having developed this concept, where do we want to store these precious water resources? I mentioned that you can either by the side of the river mouth or right at the river itself, or extend right into the itself. All right, historically, this is what we call the first reservoir. Having, you can see that a big barrage damming across the river mouth itself. All right. Now the second generation, right, put across the river mouth, and then okay, and that probably when you have a tapping water right to river mouth, we are looking at what we call a total catchment, total catchment. Instead of at the upstream, we are catching it right downstream. All right, not even in midstreams where there's no saline intrusion, but going right up to the downstream, simply because of the mention, at the moment there will be fresh water, especially during the high flow of the flood. Second, there come today what we call the second generation of passive and third generations of coastal reservoir. And it says that the first generation probably just close up the river mouth, close it up, right, with a barrage. And obviously, we're taking care of having a barrage. There's also a need to have, perhaps looking at it from a drainage point of view, the need for pumping as well. Now, the second generation will be what we call having what we call coastal reservoir encroach river mouth per se. All right. In other words, water coming into the river is stored within the coastal reservoir. All is a bit what we call the budded out, obviously, in the street gates and pumps as well. Okay, so these are kind of forms that is feasible and possible and has been studied and then constructed in many parts of the world. Right, just to show it thoroughly. So just to share with you examples of coastal reservoir available in the world, in the South Korea. All right. In Netherlands, earlier they developed in the 1930s mainly for purpose of flood control. But I think I would say that in South Korea, Hong Kong, China, and close to us in Singapore, where fresh water has been actually been stored using the water. In South Star Reservoir, and, many of us have actually taken the opportunity to visit this. It's right the river mouth of the Yangtze Stream, a wide river, a very big river, and they built by the side. They built by the side a coastal reservoir with a perimeter run along the perimeter of this so-called dike or embankment, totaling about more than 60 kilometers long. We sat on the roller coaster. It took us about 1 hour ride and just go around slowly to see. Obviously, when you have a coastal reservoir, you need to have the auxiliary, the infrastructures, the intake structures, including even what we call the scouring or the outlet structure as well. All right. So outside is salt water, inside is fresh water. A very good example in Shanghai. And this coastal reservoir, as was told, that it serves as much as 80% of population for Shanghai. Obviously, way back also in Hong Kong, they already closed up what we call a global code there. This was used to part of the sea where they closed it up, all right? And then with this so-called closure, they are able to maintain this over time as a freshwater reservoir. I mentioned close back to us, Marina Bay in Singapore. This was already done more than 10 years ago, all right? Where they have a barrage and obviously the necessary pumping facilities in terms of so-called stormwater discharge. But obviously, with this over time, for them, it was over a period of 2 years. The water within the so-called upstream of the barrage start getting fresh, and with this fresh water, they are able to serve it as what we call water supply for purpose water supply. Right, so the concept reservoir can take many forms. It can be, as I mentioned, in the case of Tin Sao Sao along the river bank, river mouth bank, In the case of Singapore, they close it up totally. All right. In the case of Hong Kong, they close up part of the sea. It can also, for instance, have it even, as I say, right into the river mouth of the out the river mouth itself. Okay, so there are very strong form of coastal reservoir that can actually take place. But essentially, what I'm trying to show you is that obviously, I think Island so-called stream reservoir, we have various so-called known as the work mission of dam, large dam, like where many of you are familiar with. But in coastal reservoir, I must say that today, even though it's relatively young and new, there is also such an association, Association for Coastal Reservoir, ACRR. All right, just a lot was done not to have them in the upstream anymore, but right up to the downstream. Okay. And suddenly, we predict that the future water supply has to come and rely on what we call coastal reservoir for fresh water. Just to give it a so-called comparison, I think many scientific organizations keep on arguing. You read, go to a lot of teachers, articles, and people start saying that there won't be enough water for the world for everybody. Our rebut is no, it's not true. There's no need to quarrel and fight over water. There is water for men. There's no need to go to war. How? Go right to the river mouth. That's all right? And obviously, the standard opinions that what can be developed, but we can tell you that flood water is a resource. As what was spoken by many of the speakers. Then can
Datuk Lim, we are missing your voice.
mine.
Really, yes.
Mine.
Yes, okay. Now we can hear you.
Okay, all right. Okay. Is it all right now?
It's all right
Clear
now.
Okay,
Yes,
all right. Sorry for that short disruption.
no problem.
Is that actually technical organization are saying that there's time has been managed to qualify water. Countries actually river right go out to the sea or the ocean. There's no need to fight over water. There's plenty of water, right? And all the ways to tap it right to the river. That's not true. I think we can do it right with the sea water environment as well. And in most cases today, I think environmentalists are very vocal. Having them at the upstream by a very stringent environmental and social impact study, and it's not easy to clear this, especially for many countries. And I think the answer for one is go downstream. Coastal reservoir is the answer. It has minimum environmental impact. There could be perhaps some in terms of the so-called what we call the sedimentation issues or the biodiversity issue, but these are very minimum and can be studied. And honestly, I would say it's such a waste that we just direct discharge some water into the sea. All we need is just tap a small amount, and that suddenly answer the need for Sdg 6.4. Now, in terms of Malaysia, the commitment to achieve Sdg 6, certainly I think I would say that where does coastal reservoir falls in, all right? We have heard from Dr. Kadir just now in terms of the Malaysian plan, WSDD 2040, Water Sector Transformation 2040, and also the various measures that are coming out soon, also from the honorable ministers, right? That is all this within our plan, including the Malaysian plan, even and the way forward as well. But what I'm trying to just tell you is that if you look right to the coastal zone, all right, and to the coastal, right to river mouth, to address SDG 6.4.2 in terms of increasing the extractions of fresh water, the answer is having or implement coastal reservoir. And together with that, we're actually looking at 6.4.2 as well as the various aspect of 6.5 as well in terms of water resources, fresh water management. Okay, so I think certainly the way forward for Malaysia is to look at the need for coastal reservoir. And certainly, I would say that we will have more than water at any time of the day. That will certainly increase our what we call the raw water reserve margin. tremendously. All right. This particular association I mentioned, International Coastal Association Research for Coastal Reservoir, also has a local chapter in Malaysia, and I think we have taken a look at all the coastal towns. Notice that I think today, very soon, by the year 2030, it has been postulated that as much as 65% of the population is staying in the city. All right, and for that, I think many of our cities are also very close to the coastal region, or we call it the coastal area. In particular, even I would say Kuala Lumpur is relatively close to the coastal region, the whole Klang Valley. All right, for that matter, we are all close to the coastal region. Cities, mainly big cities in Malaysia, I would say that are very close to the sea. And we have taken a look at all the possible potential so-called coastal reservoir, both in the peninsula as well as in Sabah and Sarawak. So I think these are all possibilities that I think I would say that it can certainly enhance the so-called freshwater margin tremendously if we're there and care to look further downstream until the river mouth. And I must say that certainly, as a conclusion, the world is not running out of water, but in short, water is running out of our river mouth. We are wasting, that's what we call the precious water into the sea. And for SDG 6.4 and 6.5, I would say that coastal reservoir approach certainly the most sustainable among all the existing water source solutions. In terms of, we call it the long-term sustainability, the answer is go downstream. All right. And I must also add that I think in Malaysia, recently we have also get the note and recognition that coastal reservoir will be probably the way forward now. And I must mention that even though I showed you some of all the protection sites for both Peninsula and Sabah and Sarawak, the coastal region where we have large cities and where the populations are very large, there's a need for further studies in terms of so we call the suitability and the type and the form of coastal reservoir that can actually show the various site-specific location. And obviously, I think lastly, I must say that the time has come. The time has come for us to look at all the coastal cities, whether water is where there's water stress, and if there's water stress, the answer is look until the river mouth. All right. With that, I think, ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for your attention. Thank you. Thank you, the moderator.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Datuk Lim, Network Manager from MyCDNet, on his insights, especially on the first and second generation of coastal reservoir. And in his conclusion, Datuk mentioned whether or not we have the potential of implementation of coastal reservoir to enhance freshwater margin, especially in the states that are considered as the coastal cities, in cities that are considered as coastal cities. I love the seas and the beach. Obviously, after this, whenever we go to have picnic by the beach, we shall think about coastal reservoir. So thank you very much, Datuk. And ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions for Yang Berbahagia Datuk, please kindly put it in the chat box, and I can already see some interesting insights, thoughtful remarks, as well as sharing of experiences in the chat box from the participants. And I do welcome your questions to be delivered later during the Q&A session. So let me now invite our fourth speaker yang berusaha, Dr. Su Tai Teh, CEO of Global Peace Foundation Malaysia. So today, it is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Teh. He has an Honour Bachelor of Medicine and Bachelor of Surgery. Very interesting background from University of Malaya back in 1995, and has become a member of Neuro-Linguistic Programming NLP NMLA since 2015. I have heard about NLP. By the way, Dr. Teh, is a very, very interesting area of research that is yet to be explored by Malaysian. Appointed as the Chief Executive Officer of a Global Peace Foundation Malaysia since March 2010, and he has a vast experiences, have been working with over 50 different B40 communities in both urban and rural settings in Peninsular Malaysia, Sabah and Sarawak, and has addressed gaps on basic needs such as clean water, sanitation, housing, electricity, energy, education, and general livelihoods for target communities through his involvement with B40 social classes. So he has over 20 years of experiences working with the social sector with various non-profit organizations on youth development, poverty eradication, and community empowerment, and has also served for 7 years of community development for Orang Asli community in Pahang. And I can already see some questions related to Orang Asli water services in our YouTube channel. Which also streaming live our webinar session for today. Dr. Teh has experience in delivering many presentations in various programs at regional and international levels, such as the IAVE Asia Pacific Conferences, the United Nations International Young Leaders Assembly, and the UN conferences in Asia Pacific Forum on Youth Volunteering. So just to name a few, and he looks forward to cultivate leadership in making a social change in rural area communities across region in not only Malaysia, but also Indonesia, Nepal, Cambodia, and Philippines. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome Yang Berusaha Dr. Su Tai Teh, and his topic today would be building resilient communities, ensuring access to clean water and sanitation. Dr. Teh, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Hayati, for a very kind introduction. I actually summarized my intro into one paragraph, but Dr. Hayati still gave the full. Yeah, thanks again. So good morning to all. First of all, thanks to the organizers, the EPU and also Malaysian Water Association for organizing a webinar on this topic. 10 years ago, if you speak to me about clean water and sanitation in Malaysia, I would thought it is not a big issue. Not until I started working with rural, underprivileged communities that I realized this is actually a very pressing issue. So today I'm going to cover the 4%. Why 4%? Our minister earlier highlighted that Malaysia will achieve 96% of access to clean water, and so there is still 4% that we need to tackle. And throughout my years of working with various B40 rural communities, I come to discover that it is an issue that we cannot underestimate because it affects livelihood, it affects the health of people and so on. I'm going to share a lot of pictures to tell the story better, but because coming from a medical background, so some pictures may, it's may not be for public, but since this is a forum for discussion on this topic, I would like to share with everyone. So let's get going. Just a bit of background of Global Peace Foundation, where I'm working at. It is a non-profit organization registered in Malaysia. We believe that every human being, transcending all the culture, religion, race, and social and economic background, we are all the same human being. We're all connected as one big human family. No one should be left behind. And that's the principle of our work. And thus we have focused a lot of our work into fostering resilient and cohesive communities, especially towards the disadvantaged, underserved communities. With a lot of our work now with the Orang Asli communities, especially in Pahang. And our work approach in any of this disadvantaged community will start with basic needs, because these are basic human rights. And then we would also address other areas like education, livelihood, and so on. So these are the summary of what we're able to do over the last 10 years. Work with many villages on access to clean water, building washrooms, providing sanitation, and so on. So our work in particular on Sdg 6 we have covered several states in Perak, Pahang, a little bit in Selangor, in Sabah and Sarawak, mainly in Serian district, and also Keningau and a bit on Sandakan as well. Reason why I share this is I'm also going to share the findings of the sources of water for this rural remote villages. Yeah. So the black color droplets is not oil, it's not dirty water. These are just a color that I put as symbolizing gravity feed piping. These are communities that live near to the hill, to the mountain. Why black color? Because they use polypipe, and polypipe typically black color. So the gravity feed water source are generally quite decent. If the water source is not contaminated by logging and things like that, they're usually quite okay. And until when it's heavy rain, then they get very muddy. I usually see them as still more fortunate if they have running stream up the hill. The less advantaged communities are those that has no running stream, and they typically tap water from the well, basically groundwater or surface water, digging pond, and because this type of water are easily contaminated. Rainwater harvesting is very common in East Malaysia, less common in Peninsula. Because of the heavy rainfall, a lot of the houses would have water tanks, and the governments are also been providing water tanks to this community. So these are partial info because we have not worked with every single districts in the whole country. A bit about the Orang Asli communities, because that's the main coverage that I will speak about. So the Orang Asli communities are mainly in Peninsula. They are minority with population about 200,000, covering 18 sub-ethnic groups, most populated in Perak and Pahang. Poverty level is very high, as you might have heard of. And a lot of the villages, especially the smaller one, they are not recognized, and they also have no basic amenities. Not all Orang Aslis are suffering with the same issues, but there are still quite a number of villages with no basic amenities. Yeah. So even though we work with different regions, the last 5 years we have zoomed in and stayed really focused in 2 districts in Pahang. Why? Because they are the poorest Orang Asli communities we come about in the country. Many of them have lost their forests, they're living in the palm oil, fringe of town. So let's zoom into water poverty, which was actually one of our first project we work on. And so according to the United Nations, they gave a very comprehensive description of what's a right to water. And the right to water cover availability, that everyone should get enough water for various needs, in everyday life. And water should be clean, right? It's free from harmful substances. There's a good quality. Accessibility, water should be easily accessed. You shouldn't have to walk very far to get access to water. And all these issues are faced by the communities that I'm going to talk about, right? So first issue is quality. A lot of the surface water this day are not clean anymore. I grew up in a house with a well many years ago. I remember the water is quite clean, but today if you go to villages that are used to relying on well, they are usually murky in different colors. And they are also very prone to contamination because they are open, right? And if they have farms and mining nearby, that's even worse. Yeah. These are just some pictures of the water sources in different places. The picture on the far right, when I was in the village, I saw that bottle. And I asked the orang kampung, I say, itu minyak masak ke? And to my surprise, they say, itu air minum, ambil dari sungai tepi kampung. And that's when I realized, okay, this is serious. Yeah. So these are the water sources in different villages. And depending on season, sometimes they are cleaner, sometimes they get worse. And we've done also lab tests, there are high amount of E. coli, coliforms. And you know, if they don't boil the water, they can get very, very sick. Yeah. The second issue is about availability of water for other usage, right? Laundry, take bath, you know, cleaning and so on. Again, it's a major issue because a lot of the water sources are contaminated, right? But they have no choice but to do their laundry, to take shower, you know, all at the same place, right? So, I mean, kids have fun there. It's like their swimming pool. But later I'm going to talk about the health implications. So, water accessibility affects the villagers, especially the women, because just imagine waking up every day, you have to walk, you know, 5, 10, 20 minutes to carry heavy water bottle back to home. And how much can a person carry, right? You will have to go multiple trips. So this affects the water bearer, you know, in terms of time, in terms of, you know, they get injured or get backache, yeah. And so also I'd like to zoom into the impact on women's life, because mothers are the water bearer. They cook, they take care of the kids, they shower, they do laundry, and thus the impact is especially high. And even for young girls, the absence of a bathroom in where they live and having to take bath at the swamp where they do laundry, it affects their well-being, their dignity, and so on. And just a story about Norisa. She's one of the villagers we work with very closely, and we shadow her one time to carry water, and we were shocked that she told us she need to do 16 trips, because you just imagine a household used to cook, you wash your dishes, you drink, you know, you do laundry, and you need a lot of water. And for her, it's about 4 hours per day, every day, to just fetch water. Yeah, so we've built a pump system in the village for her, and now she's free of the 4 hours and she could do a lot of other things. Yeah, we have documentary on our YouTube channel if you like to watch us documenting various issues on water, sanitations, and hygiene. Look at this picture. What do you know? What's your take about this picture? Right, in a village, abandoned toilet, right? And naturally, what's in your mind? Like, why don't they use the toilet? Right? It's nice, you know, if you clean it up. And if you don't really ask, you will be puzzled, like, why don't they use the toilet? And people actually have the impression that the orang asli, they just like to do it in, you know, out in the wild. Not really. We've done a lot of survey with the orang asli villages. Everybody would like to have a toilet, and this toilet is abandoned simply because they have no water, right? A toilet without water is useless because it will be smelly, and it's not even the reason. The absence of sanitation facility like toilet and washroom has a great impact on women and children, right? These are studies done by UNICEF and various organizations that it's a highest percentage of sexual violence when women actually go out, you know, to do their business without toilet. And poor sanitation also affect girls because they get sick, diarrhea, they get skin issues, and they can't go to school. Yeah, and it also affects children's growth because of malnutrition. Yeah, just a quick fact. We've done a survey on menstrual hygiene with a number of women's and the orang asli villages, and we found 70% of orang asli women without toilet, they find it very challenging to take care of their menstrual hygiene. Yeah, so it is something that affects them, not just health, but also dignity and mental health as well. So I'm gonna just quickly run through the implications on health and well-being in villages and communities without access to water and sanitation. These are skin diseases that I've documented over the years, a lot more, but skin infections are very, very common, and they are common in villages that water is scarce, is far, and they are unclean. And you would be surprised I was surprised when I heard about leprosy in Orang Asli villages. I haven't heard of it, since my medical school. I've never seen anyone with leprosy. But in certain villages in the Orang Asli community, they are quite prevalent. And then when you look into their water issues, these are the villages that have water scarcity, water source is far, and things like that. Yeah. So, and leprosy affects them very badly. This gentleman on the right, his name is Nordin. He used to be able to do heavy work, but after he got leprosy, even though under treatment, he cannot carry heavy things, and things like that. Yeah. Even though they're under treatment, but they are affected. These are very adorable kids in the village. We did some children program, and I look at their skin, and I was really, really sad because a lot of them are infected by this fungal infection called tinea imbricata. Very hard to treat because they may not be disciplined to take the medicine and do follow-up. Yeah, and it affects them because they cannot sleep well at night. Just imagine your son or daughter can't sleep at night because they're scratching all over their body of itchiness. Just zoom in and let you see how severe they are. And another picture of mother and son who are also very badly affected by this skin infection. So these are skin infection, but water issues can also take away lives, right? A village in Kuala Ko, Gua Musang, a couple of years ago, quite a number of the villages died within a few weeks, even though the investigation came out as a measles infection, pneumonia, but a lot of the villages are saying that their water is contaminated by mining activities nearby and so on. So, it's very sad, and it can happen in any of the villages. Yeah. So just to, before I wrap up, I'll just talk about what we do in terms to address this water poverty. Again, the three aspects that we have to address in terms of quality of the water, making sure it's clean, making sure they are near to the house, making sure that there's awareness to stay hygienic, and then providing them with proper sanitation. So we work with villages. Before we start, we'll do needs assessment. We'll talk to the villages to get the input, to understand their issues, and to get the solution from them as well. And wash training is part of our intervention, always to create awareness, to remind them of how to properly wash your hand and brush your teeth and take care of personal hygiene. And then we do the exercise with the mother and children. They will enjoy learning. Water filtration system is necessary because of their contaminated water source. And we provide household water filters because they are easier to maintain. People feel more accountable. If they don't take care, then it's spoiled compared to a community unit. So it gives them water that's safe and clean to drink and to cook. This is one of the brand that we use is Life Straw. They are good to remove bacteria, particles in the water, and parasites and worms, and they are very easy to maintain. No electricity needed. Yeah. So just a background of how ultrafiltration membrane work. They are very cheap technology, and because of the pore size is very small, they actually could filter bacteria, some viruses, and microplastics, but yet minerals would go through. So you still, get the minerals that your body needs. Yeah. In order to help make water more accessible, that they don't have to walk and carry water every day, we will install pumps in the villages powered by solar, because if you use a petrol pump, you have problem, paying for petrol, and there are also a lot of maintenance fee. Yeah. So these are technology that are becoming very affordable this day. And so once you have water that's accessible to them, just right next to the house, even within their kitchen, the villagers are just overjoyed, right? And to many of these communities, it's the first time to have a tap at home that they can turn and have water, right? For us, it's just everyday life, but for them, many of them have never had it before. Yeah, we've also installed a sand filter because some of the water pond can also be murky. Yeah, sanitation, very straightforward. washroom building. The way how we do it, we teach the community to do it, we provide them with materials. And it's important for them to do it themselves, so they actually gain the ownership, they take good care of it. If it's spoiled, they know how to repair it. We create manuals and we train all the villagers who are interested to learn. Yeah. So once you have the washroom, people can wash their hand, they bathe their kids, and don't have to go to the dirty pond anymore. Yeah. So we work with various organizations, funders, agencies, in order to deliver this program, and we're open to collaborate. We're open to get your input. I do see a lot of people in this webinar from very different background, and we're happy to also discuss and learn from each other's experience. So let's work together to address this 4% who are not receiving, the clean water and sanitation yet. And if you'd like to reach out to me, these are my contacts. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Teh, for very nice insights on what Global Peace Foundation Malaysia is doing, and very proud also to see all of the initiatives that has been done, especially concerning health and hygiene issues in Kampung Orang Asli. We can see that they not only require immediate medical attention, but also all of these problems and issues, root cause is the provision of good water supply and sanitation services. So thank you so much, Dr. Teh. So distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, now we are moving on to the Q&A session. And it's a Friday, it's a good day, Friday. And we have around, I would say, 40 minutes of timeline for Q&A session. And I have received so many encouraging questions from participants watching over YouTube, as well as those attending here on Zoom platform. And may I request our secretariat to please kindly put our speakers on their videos. May I invite our speakers to please kindly switch on your videos as well. Okay, so moving on. Let us go back to Yang Berusaha Puan Haja Bibi Zarina. And I have received several questions here in relation to Malaysia's achievement in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, especially on water conservation, developing new water resources. And then there are also questions coming from Renhil Bersekutu Sendirian Berhad on what is Malaysia's SDG achievements up to date. And the previous statement comes from Green Deck Sendirian Berhad. So probably if I sum up and combine the two comments from our participants who have registered earlier on the Google form, probably Puan Bibi can attempt this one. So how do you see Malaysia can achieve its water sustainability goals in terms of water conservation and developing new water resources? And how can local people contribute to the programs to achieve this?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Hayati, and also for the question. Yes, in terms of ranking, as I've showed in my earlier slides, we are actually at number 65 over 165. We are, Malaysia is ranked at 65 over 165 countries reporting on SDG, and not all countries who actually signed the agreement with UN reported on the SDG goals. Yeah, because from the report that I read, it says that the reporting for the whole whole world actually decreases. Not many countries reported due to the COVID pandemic. Many countries actually did not report it, but we reported, Malaysia reported, and we are at number 65 currently. Okay, that is for the whole Sdg6 on SDG that is on clean water and sanitation. So under SDG6, actually we have many elements. They have like what Dr. Kadir has shown. SDG6 consists of S6.1, which is for drinking water, 6.2 for sanitation and hygiene, 6.3 for water and wastewater, 6.4 for water and scarcity, 6.5 on water resources and management, and also on cooperation and participation. So every part, for every element, there are agencies which actually report on the status for the country. And as has been mentioned also by Dato' Kadir, everybody is actually reporting, and there is a need to have a central agency which actually consolidate all this information before it goes out to the United Nations. Currently, everybody report on its own. I think that is what is happening. For example, well, I can't talk for other people, but for JPS, we are actually reporting for 6.5.1. That is for implementation of IWRM, and also 6.5.2. That is for transboundary water. Transboundary water. So on these two, now what we do is that we get information from all the stakeholders, and that is not easy. We actually have done a lot. Malaysia has done a lot, but was not well reported, or we do not put our information on the website so that it is open to people to see what we are doing. So many initiatives has been carried out, but not reported. And we couldn't get all the information. And when we write to all the stakeholders, well, this is the problem of reporting. It's not easy to get all the reports on time. So, but however, we have tried. We have done many workshops and everything to get all the information on board. And as for 6.5.1, we have actually improved in terms of reporting from 2019 to 2020. So 2019, for example, we scored 43 for implementation of IWRM, whereas in 2020, we scored 63. So there is an improvement. A lot more can be actually reported, but whatever that we report has to have, we have to have a link or somewhere where they can counter check what we reported. So that is what we are lacking. Not much is being put on the net for sharing. And another issue is in terms of security, data security, and also the willingness to share information with the public. So we are still, many agencies are like, can we share this information? I mean, is it okay? The world will know what we are doing.
Yes,
they wanted to know what we're doing actually, so we need reports. Yeah, so there is an issue there where many people are not willing to share yet. Many stakeholders are not willing to share whatever initiatives that they're doing. Yeah, so that is one issue that we have in terms of reporting. I'm talking about only 6.5.1 and 6.5.2. What I've been involved in. I do not know about the other parts. And as Dr. Kadir clearly mentioned just now, that we need to have a central agency which actually look at all the data that we are going to pass over to the United Nations. So, I mean, EPU as a central agency should be playing this role, I think, and probably we have to be more aggressive to get all the information. Yeah. Okay. The second part is on the local contribution and participation of yes. Public. Yeah. So okay. Ever since, actually, government is actually putting more effort in engaging the people to be involved in doing this volunteer work or awareness program. I think what need to change is that, as I mentioned in my last slide, on the importance of the public to be informed, and then for them to be informed, and then for them to be consulted, and for them to be involved, and for them to be engaged. So this is important because we do not want them to be like, if the government calls, only they will come in and do. It is not their own initiative, it's a government's initiative. What we want is that for them to be informed of the situation on our water resources. So for example, a simple thing like pollution, they need to be informed. Our rivers are polluted, and they have to make the initiative themselves. You know, we do not want to be spoon-feeding the public to come and do awareness program together with the government. If the government is not there, then nothing is done. And if, for example, whatever gotong royong that the government carried out, if you see when we do gotong royong, the local people is not there. We are actually the government agencies are go down and do the gotong royong, but the local people are just look at what we are doing. They don't come on board and do it together with us. So it's like they're waiting for other people to come and do gotong royong at the place. So what we need is actually for them to have this initiative and the sense of belonging, that the river is also theirs, and they need to come aboard and do voluntary work. You know, to be they must have this need to want the river to be clean. The river by their kampong has to be clean. It has to come from them. So we would like to encourage more of this kind of initiative from the communities, so that they will come aboard with their own initiatives to improve the situation within their kampong itself. So and it need not be the riverside, cleaning their kampong area, because when your kampong is clean, then all the rubbish doesn't go to the river anymore. So it doesn't mean that you just clean the river, but you don't clean the kampong. You have to clean your kampong so that the rubbish from the kampong doesn't flow to the river. So these are things that communities can do by themselves. They need not wait for the government to come down to the kampong and help them.
Exactly.
So this is what I think what needs to be done.
Okay. Thank you, Puan, for the response, and I hope those responses answers the questions from Encik Muhammad Nur Ahmad, Sector Director Rainhill Bersekutu Sendirian Berhad, as well as from Engineer Edwin Chu, General Manager of Green Deck Sendirian Berhad. So we have received your question from your registration form via Zoom. Okay, thank you so much, Puan. And then I have rather interesting questions for Datuk Kadir. I think I would like to pose this question to Yang Bahagia Datuk. This is from Deputy Director of SPAN, Mr. Adam Malik bin Najri, and also Professor Chan Ngai Weng from University Science Malaysia in relation to tarif review, Datuk. So the questions revolves around how to ensure tarif review is being implemented to ensure that we have water and sewerage systems, a sustainable one and effective one. And then another question in relation to that from USM is, in restructuring water tariffs, which is necessary to curb water wastage, and how can we ensure that the minorities do not get marginalized? Dato'.
Thank you. This is my thought on the tariff review. It has been a battle for decades. Thank you for that question. That is a very good question you posed here. And that is part of the sustainability of the water sector. Because the bread and butter, the sole income of water operator is from this so-called regulated tariff. And it is called from this WSIA, the Water Services Industry Act, that the tariff need to be reviewed every 3 years. And I guess that's not been done nationwide, but rather individually. Those are bold enough. Some of the states that's managed by the state government, they just go through like Perak and the rest on this water side. So you talk about the tariff per se, everything is ready. I think SPAN has done a good job in the tariff setting mechanism, both for water and sewerage. What is lacking is implementation. So yeah, you have to be bold enough, and I have to say again, water should not be politicized. But before you implement this tariff setting mechanism, you need to go for a roadshow to have a buy-in, get the public understand what is the component of the tariff, and then that will appreciate, because some of the saying says water is free. Yes, water that falls from the sky is free, But to manage the rivers and to bring the water to their homes, this is where the cost comes in. And we want the public to appreciate the value of water. So when they appreciate the value of water, then it will give an impact on the usage of water. Use water for the right use. And this is all the campaign that we need to do, similar to what been done in the rivers. Now the river trail are being embarked on as part of the budget to manage the rivers on a small scale. Likewise, similarly, need to be done for water and sewerage. So my take on that, the mechanism is ready. What is lacking is implementation. Why not go for it and walk the talk and deliver what's been promised to safeguard the water side, because some of the water sectors, water operators, example like Pahang's more than 35 years, tariffs not being reviewed. They have just migrated. So when they migrate, the function of the WISIA per se is to make the water sector sustainable. So none of them is sustainable now. Some is still in the red. I think Span will know better on the financial situation of each water operators. So in short, look at the tariff review need to be done as per plan. Is what I say, execution and enforcement. And you have to be strict. Those who fail, if you need to penalize, because the right for water to the public is a must, but at the right cost. So and also you look at the whole chain, how you do this. You have to look at, I did mention about circular economy. The water sector, especially the water operators, be it source and water supply and sewage, they need an entrepreneurial mind looking at downstream of what you can convert the waste product into wealth. And this is where waste to resource and waste to wealth, that will cushion a bit on the expenditure and make the water sector sustainable. So otherwise, others also have to contribute. If you look at the how to curb, the question just now is on how to curb. Second question.
Water wastage, yeah. How to curb water wastage.
Water wastage, of course, sometimes you have to go through penalization. Example, create a policy in drought season. Is seen to use potable water for non-potable usage.
Right.
Saving of water. That's one of the scheme that should be employed. And also, when you have this gadget of monitoring water usage, then you educate the public how to manage the water on a monthly basis to show to them. Because not many people or consumer knows the amount of the water that they use. So this is where, if you put this formula into a proper apps that's been planned in the WST 2040 as a pilot to do an apps, so that the consumer knows the volume of water they consume on monthly basis, and that will allow them to manage their pockets in terms of the value of water that they pay for. So there are many more, but I think short of time to explain a bit more, but that's part and parcel of how to curb. Is just about giving the awareness and education to the public, and that must be a continuing process. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dato. I think Dato and Puan Bibi really raised a very important key point here, which is raising awareness among the public that we as the consumers of water, we as the consumers of wash sanitation services should really bring ourselves down to the ground and then do things for ourselves by ourselves, which can then create a ripple effect in terms of protecting water resources and the environmental sustainability. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Dato, for the response, and I hope that answers the question given by SPAN as well as University of Science Malaysia just now. And I have so many questions coming into our chat box now. I will try to combine some of the questions, especially now that we want to get some insights from Yang Bahagia Datuk Lim on coastal reservoir just now, and then we have two questions which I think my team has given to me. One is from Mr. Nasrid Nordin, and then the other one that I can see on the chat box is from Engineer Chiok Ho Seng from Ranhill Consulting Sendirian Berhad. So if I can combine these two questions, the key thought message that they wish to know is whether or not coastal water is the only solution for raw water supply, And then other than the potential site identified and feasibility studies conducted for coastal reservoir in Malaysia, Dato', are there any pilot coastal projects in Malaysia that we foresee may be implemented on the ground in the near future? So those two segment of questions. One is whether or not it is the only solution for water supply, and then the other one, whether or not we have a pilot case study that can be implemented in Malaysia. Over to you, Datuk Lim.
Thank you, Dr. Hayati. Certainly, I think those are two relevant questions, and I will say that in terms of the coastal reservoir concept, I did mention, I think in areas where we have water stress, and especially in cities along the coast, and where water stress is a big issue, the way forward in terms of long-term sustainability is look right up to the river mouth, and that's where coastal reservoir is all about. And I would say that there are other options. Obviously, people want to look at it. Obviously, whichever in terms of economic and financial feasibility and liability, so-called feasibility. Whether you want to go for things like still looking at the upstream or water supply, or perhaps even we call it on-river storage above the so-called tidal zone area, if there is also a possibility of looking at it. But if this is not enough, then I think go further downstream, right to the coastal reservoir, all right to the river mouth. Okay, I think obviously, and this is one of the options where water stress is very severe in coastal cities. And on the possibility of whether in Malaysia, I must admit that so far we have not implemented the real coastal reservoir in the real sense, apart from I call it the off-river storage. Those are actually above the saline intrusion area. All right, I'm proposing is right up to the saline intrusion area, right at river mouth. That I must admit that we have not actually implemented yet, and that's where my mission is actually to, in a way, I would say foster this concept and promote this concept, and hopefully, I think cities where experiencing heavy water stress should seriously consider this. Pilot project, yes, certainly, I think there should be a way forward. I think perhaps the government should seriously consider this. But I must take note that I think the ministries has actually initiated some study on this in certain, I would say, certain areas like Johor and Langkawi as well. I think some study has actually been initiated in terms of this study. Each site has to be studied separately, because, as I said, the form of coastal reservoir, how you're going to take it, all right, to have a total closure, or even to conquer right the sea, or perhaps along the coastal bank, take different form, and then different river mouth have different kind of so-called geomorphological features. So I think that has to be considered separately. All right. So I think feasibility studies then is necessary for each different site as well. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Datuk Lim. I hope that answers the questions that's been given from Zoom chat and as well as from our YouTube viewer today. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have one more interesting two questions which I shall then probably mix together for Dr. Teh. One is regarding JACOA, and then the other one is regarding the MOH, Ministry of Health. So the questions came from Melvin Fong Wai Lung, Manager of Ever Water Camp Consult Sendirian Berhad. So the question is, what can we expect in comparison with the current available benchmark for drinking water quality standard with the recent announcement from the MOH? And then another question, which is related to the potable water crisis in particularly Kampung Orang Asli, particularly in Kampung Orang Asli. Even JACOA and other government agency has installed water filtration system, but the problem of clean water still exists in Orang Asli area. Why do you think, Dr. Teh, that this kind of problem still or remain to be like a problem that attracts everybody's attention, that they still have these issues concerning clean water supply? So two questions for you to probably attempt for us. Thank you, Dr. Teh.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hayati. In terms of benchmark of drinking water, I would not be able to comment that much, partly because our role is not to ensure that all the villages get a good benchmark, but we do strive to provide highest quality of drinking water as possible, then that's why we do not simply use any kind of products in the market, but a product that's certified to be able to filter cleaner and safer water for drinking. Yeah. In terms of why there's still villages that are struggling from the issue of access to clean water and sanitation, I do see that the different government agencies are doing their part. We've seen Ministry of Health providing polypipes to villages to build their gravity feed system. We do see some filtration system in some villages, but the fact is there are many villages that are scattered around, potentially not being identified. Secondly, there's also prioritization by the government agencies. So in terms of Orang Asli villages, there are recognized villages and there are non-recognized villages. Unfortunately, non-recognized villages are not being prioritized for various developmental implementations. So that cover road, water, electricity. Yeah, and that's where I see a lot of NGO fills in the gap of those villages that are not covered by various developmental funding from the government. So yeah, I hope that explains. Some villages are of course more remote, but I've also seen, we've also worked with Orang Asli villages that are by the roadside and they have no access to water and also electricity. Yeah, we are open to collaborate with any agencies who are keen to tackle this issue, because we do mapping. We build database of villages on our own, and then when we have funding, we would address those issues. Yeah, one by one. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Teh, for the insights. And I couldn't agree more with you that this is a very important aspects of developing that holistic awareness among the public, including the minority groups in Malaysia and also in other countries, for them to realize the importance of protecting water resources and also the importance of practicing self-hygiene. And then to have that mindset that cleanliness is very important, and then that they protect this type of cleanliness based on the kind of water resources and wash sanitation services that we provide. So ladies and gentlemen, I do have to apologize because with time, masa memang amat mencemburui kita, especially on this blessed day, the second Friday of the holy month of Ramadan. And then may I now invite, probably I'm going to go around the table or probably go around the screen to invite our esteemed speakers to please kindly give a little bit of something, your personal key messages to the audience today in about 30 seconds. What is the key message that you wish for the participants to bring home today? Probably we start with Puan Bibi. Puan Bibi, your microphone, please.
Thank you, Dr. Hayati. Yes, as we all know that we need to have some sense of belonging before we want to embark on any initiatives or whatever. So there must be this sense of belonging that mean the river or the reserves or whatever that we're doing, it is also for our own benefit, and it is not for other people, you know. Whether you do any good things, the benefit will finally come back to you. So if each and every one of us have that kind of mentality, then all together, then we can achieve much more better. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Puan Bibi. And Yang Bahagia Datuk Kadir, probably a little something from you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Nati. In short, I'll just give a few keywords. It's all for one and one for all. Break the silos, bring unity for sense of ownership. And last not least, we should not politicize the water sector, and water is for the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Yang Bahagia Datuk. And then Datuk Lim.
Thank you, Dr. Hayati. I just want to address just one important point that People always think the impediment or challenges to coastal reservoir is water quality or pollution. We have already achieved more than 60 years independence. I think it's very shameful that we still have a portfolio of rivers. Time has come. Time has suddenly, I think, pollution need to be addressed in parallel. And I would say that even with or without coastal reservoir, we need to even so-called address the issues of pollutions in the river. I think that has to come in together. Together, obviously, I think need to be addressed simultaneously. And there's also, I think, pertinent questions about things like other form of so-called water sources like rainwater harvesting.
Yes.
Purely gravity feed. I must say that actually there is so far most of the rainwater harvesting that's installed. Obviously, you need to use some form of pumping because they are actually collected down at the so-called ground level of the house of the building. So some form of pumping might be necessary. In terms of purely gravity feed, I think there's hardly, I would say, quite justified. My take-home message of Dr. Hayati is that to the participants is that Malaysia is not running out of water, but water is running out of Malaysia. All right, and certainly I take this opportunity to appeal to all decision whatever government agency they approve all kind of development scheme to seriously consider, obviously, the implementations of coastal reservoir in the cities, especially in the coastal city where we do experience water stress. But thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Lim, for your insights. And then probably a little something from you, Dr. Teh.
Yeah, thank you. As we might all be aware of, water is life. Water is livelihood for many. Water is health. And so my recommendation of moving forward is really to work on this issue collectively in a social, public, private partnership. Public because the government agency has a lot of information, data, expertise. Private sectors has the capital expertise as well. And social, in terms of non-profit organizations, has a lot of networks on the ground, information on communities. And if we can work collectively, I believe we could move forward more quickly. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Teh. So ladies and gentlemen, there are so many questions that we are unable to probably address during the webinar session. Nevertheless, the Secretariat shall give the questions asked by all participants on Zoom, on YouTube, and also on the Google form to the speakers to be addressed by the speakers themselves directly to those who are asking. I'm sure that Malaysian Water Association later will produce a sharing on their website as well as EPU on their respective websites on this webinar today. And on behalf of the entire webinar session and on behalf of the Secretariat, I would like to thank everybody for your kind attention and especially to all of the esteemed speakers today, having various background, giving so many insights on mentality, sense of belonging, the love for nature, rivers, etc. And then putting on the spirit on one for all and all for one by Datuk Kadir, and that water is running out of Malaysia from Datuk Lim. And finally, to sum up everything, water is definitely for life, for health, and for livelihood. With that, I thank you everyone, and I would encourage all participants on Zoom to please kindly download the virtual background so that we can have a very nice group photo for today. Thank you very much, and I hand over the session back to my friend Mr. Hidayat as the MC for today. Thank you. Assalamualaikum.
Thank you to our moderator Yang Berusaha Associate Professor Dr. Nur Hayati binti Abdullah and our panelists Yang Berusaha Insinyur Haja Bibi Zarina binti Cik Omar, Yang Berbahagia Datuk Insinyur Abdul Kadir bin Muhammad Din, Yang Berbahagia Datuk Insinyur Lim Chow Hook, and Yang Berusaha Dr. Su Tai Teh for the insightful presentation and discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, if you move your mouse cursor to the bottom of your screen slightly to the left, you may see a reactions icon with the smiley face. Now let's give a big round of applause to our moderator and panelists by clicking the clap icon. And to our participants who joining us through YouTube Live, send us your likes and love. Distinguished participants, I would like to share with all of you about the upcoming events by Malaysian Water Association. First is a webinar titled Air Bersih Berbaluikah Pelarasan Tarif. This webinar will happen on 21st April 2022, next Friday. This webinar is jointly organized with Suruhanjaya Perkhidmatan Air Negara. Second event is for those who love outdoor challenge. My Water Fund Challenge 2022 will happen from 1st July until 31st August 2022. You can register yourself from now until 31st August 2022. For more info, visit www.mwa.org.my. Thank you. And before we end our webinar today, let us have a virtual photo group. So please turn on your camera and give us your biggest smile.
Okay, we have 7 pages. So I take one page by one page. Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
so page 1 is ready. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Hold on. Second page. Hold on. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Third page. Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Pots. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Fifth. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 6. 1, 2. Okay. And the last
but
one.
not least, yes. Senyum, jangan tak senyum.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we come to the end of this event. I wish to thank our moderator and all panelists for sharing their views and expertise. To all participants, thank you for your time joining us today. I wish you all stay safe, stay healthy. My name is Nur Hidayat Salman, signing off. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam Ramadan Karim.